Thanks a lot, Zoashai, for the nice introduction. Good afternoon to everybody. I guess there are some people in the room that I know, but as I already have brought up the presentation, I unfortunately can't see you. Maybe we have the chance later during some discussion. Okay. So first of all, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to present on the work progress that we have in the different innovation programs of the GCCA. It's really a pleasure for me to present this. Maybe a very brief introduction on myself, the name you see on the screen. I'm with Heidelberg Materials since 1991, first in some operational roles, and since more than 20 years now leading the global R&D activities of the Heidelberg Materials Group. As said, really a pleasure being with you this afternoon. Yeah, what I want to talk about is three main instruments that we have created within the or out of the working group innovation of the Global Cement and Concrete Association. The first one being what we call the Entrepreneur Network, which is a combination of 17 startups. I will go in some more detail in a moment. Then the main, let's say, innovation instrument that they have developed is the so-called GCCRN, Global Cement and Concrete Research Network, which started already in 19, and we grew that over the years now, which is now really in full swing and delivers tangible results, with more than 80 PhD students working on innovation topics for our industry. And then the third instrument that I want to talk about is the so-called Open Challenge process, where we look into startups. First round we conducted in 2022. That year and also 23, we saw quite good and interesting outcomes, which I will shortly present. Last year's round was a bit more challenging, as we only ended up in one consortium, but I will talk about that as well in some more detail. So let me start with the entrepreneurial network and the key activities. This is, if you want, the youngest baby of the GCCA innovation concepts, which we started 1.5 years ago. And meanwhile, we have in total 17 startups that join this network and build a kind of ecosystem that are interested in collaborating to support our net zero mission. I think many startups, meanwhile, you see often high financial investments that go into the startup scene, but I think many of them realize that they can't work against the established industry, but need them as a partner to really develop their technologies. So I think it's a good way of staying in contact, mentoring these startups, and have a real network of interaction to develop innovative concepts to industrial scale. So I think they benefit a lot from the mentorship we provide for seminars per year. They can participate, the startups can participate in the annual meeting of the GCCA, which obviously is an excellent networking opportunity. With that, I would turn to the main instrument that we have created, which was the very first instrument as well, the research network at global scale, which is composed of, I think today we are 34 industrial members. So on the list here, you see all the major cement groups from around the world, but we also include the relevant admixture manufacturers into this network, as well as some of the equipment suppliers like FLSmith and others. So that's crossing along the value chain to include all relevant stakeholders of our industry. After a ramp-up phase, which was during the COVID pandemic, so we started, as I said, in 99, and then during 2020 and 21, we have created this network. So all online meetings, obviously. At that stage, the first time we really met in person was then only in 2022. But we have nevertheless been able to really create a strong culture of collaboration in this global network. One relevant side effect, obviously, is also that we develop young talents in this, let's say, PhD-driven environment. So investing in the industry's future and also elevates the level of education of these young talents. First target, obviously, creating knowledge. So the core projects are really addressing industry challenges. So the industry partners identify the demand and identify the priorities in which we want to invest. But then we also created instruments to transfer the knowledge out of the universities into industry via so-called knowledge transfer workshops. So where we directly interact between the industry partners, the professors, and the PhD scientists. And then finally, obviously, also very important to generate really tangible deliverables, which can be tools, which can be techno-economical studies, which can be models or AI-based, and so on. I will show you a few examples of these. Let me start with the collaboration part. So first of all, I think it's important to understand that with the number of partners that we have, with the number of scientists involved in the whole network, this is by far the biggest industry academic network in the world. There's no other industry that I know about that has a similar tool of collaboration on the basic research level. So I said overall, around about 450 scientists are engaged in that network. We are spending around about 10 million or have a value of research, if you put all PhD projects together, of around 10 million, whereof a bit more than 10% is provided by the industrial partner. So the principle works that way, that the industry partners pay into a common budget, out of which we finance the core projects. But each of the universities involved, so of the 43 academic partners, has at least to provide one partner project, which they have to finance out of other sources. So that multiplies the impact that we have by a big factor, so that the overall value of research is almost 10 times that what we put into the system. Second main point, developing talent. It's often difficult for the gray cement industry to attract students. This, of course, financing the PhDs in the network is a good mean to attract them to our industry. We also have created a alumni network for these PhD students, which is up and running since about 2 years. And of course, that is a good mean to attract well-trained engineers and scientists to our industry. By the way, for our Heidelberg Materials colleagues, the first PhD student that finished will join Heidelberg in 1st of October, so in a couple of weeks. Core projects, as the name implies, are really at the core of the activities of this network, where the, let's say, field of activity is really along the whole value chain. So from clinker production, admixture technology, carbon capture, I will show some examples in a moment. And then you see on the right side, the partner projects are also spread along the whole value chain. So that in total, we have around about 80 PhD students working inside that network and developing knowledge. And then I said we have created platforms to share the outcome and encourage adaptation across the board. Of course, the industry partners need to be actively engaged in order to take the know-how and implement within their own industry. So you need to have somehow a link directly to the different projects and participate in especially in these knowledge workshops, and see how you can implement that in your own environment. So this slide gives a little bit an overview on what are the different topics that we are addressing today. along the value chain. You know, that really starts from the left, clinker production with a core project on utilizing artificial intelligence in cement manufacturing, or using electrical energy for cement production. We look into early age properties of low clinker cements, and so on. And on the cement and binder side, a strong focus on calcined clay, where we look into questions around the rheology, which often can be an issue with the calcined clay cements due to the high surface of the clay. How is the pore structure and solution developing over time? What are chemical properties of calcined clay that impact the performance of LC3 cements? So that are activities around the calcined clay implementation in our industry. Then we also look into carbon capture technologies, for example, carbon capture with pillared clays, a totally different and new process that looks promising. We look into the microstructure of carbonated material, where we utilize concrete as CO2 sink. And then, of course, also important for our industry to provide durability, even with very low clinker content. So looking into carbonation and corrosion, and the overall durability performance is also an important element of the project portfolio that we have at this stage. And then in the end, we also obviously look into recycling and the possibilities for recarbonation. Few examples on deliverables across or along this value chain. We had one project on the electrification of kiln systems. That was not really a technical project, but primarily kind of meta-analysis to understand the economics. What comes out of this project is that there are, at least under current circumstances, will be only very few locations where an electric kiln is really more economic than carbon capture, unless you are in very remote locations and no infrastructure and so on. What might make sense is that you decouple processes and, for example, only do the calcination part in an electric form, but then still put in the remaining energy via kind of conventional burning, or maybe at a later stage via plasma burners. But the classical full electrification at this stage will not be economically competitive to other technologies. As already indicated on the on the right side, we are looking into the use of artificial intelligence to predict clinker and cement performance based on process and chemical data, to see how far we can optimize process control and also emission control of plants. That is also a very promising development, obviously, on the one hand. On the other hand, it also showed us that in most plants, the density of data that we have available today and the reliability of data is not sufficient to really apply that at full scale. So I think there we still have a long way to go in our industry before this can be scaled up to really run cement plants. Next to CO2 capture, I already mentioned here pillared clays. That is a totally new technology where you kind of spread the lattice of clay minerals that they are selectively absorbing CO2 and can then be reloaded or decoupled from the CO2 capture via pressure swing in the installation. So that's a totally new technology which kind of could bypass the currently applied amine technology. But this is so far really at lab scale, as you can see from the pictures, and we have to see how we can scale that up in further projects. Big focus, as said, on clinker factor and specifically on further implementing calcined clay, or better understanding calcined clay. There we have developed some very practical things with a real testing kit, which can be applied on site with relatively simple measurements, methylene blue technology to assess how far the clay has been calcined and so on. So that is a nice instrument to do industrial scale trials in an environment where you don't have the high-end testing equipment that you might have in other plants. Last two examples, we also look, we have the admixture companies that join us, and there, of course, we are looking into, let's say, the critical questions when you talk about low clinker cements, especially the rheology in OPC limestone blends, and later we will include also calcined clays to better understand what is impacting really the rheology at that early stage. And then later can exploit that outcome to develop specific admixtures which better solve these problems. And then as an example on the circularity side, then we have one project which is really spanning around the globe with participants from India, from Europe, and from Brazil, where we compare different technologies for recycling of concrete on a life cycle and life cycle cost analysis to see, okay, what are the established methods and the environmental impact of those, and what are new technologies, how do they position to come up with the most favorable solutions ultimately. Now I would turn then to the third element of our innovation activities at GCCA, which is the open challenge. We started the first one in 2022. At the bottom left, you see the picture from Thailand, actually, in 23. And on the right side, the celebration in Düsseldorf, in Germany, in 22 of the first challenge. So I think, meanwhile, we have really a well-established process. Of course, we have also undergone some learning curve over the years and adapted the process a bit, but it's, I think the success speaks for itself. Yeah? We have attracted over these last 4 years more than 300 startups that handed in their innovations, which were then assessed by industry experts to see what is really scalable, what has a realistic chance to be implemented at scale. And out of that phase, we then always create consortia that develop, either test the performance of materials developed or pilot, finance and coordinate pilot installations to further advanced technologies. I think that is also a unique kind of accelerator really managed by the industry partners and provide a big value both for the startups, but also in principle for the venture capital industry, because they see, okay, that is something which the industry really takes serious and are probably more confident in providing finance to those startups. If we quickly go through the different challenges, the first one in 22, we looked into CCUS innovations. Company, some of the names here on the list you probably are aware of. Nuada was the one that was really financed as a pilot in an Italian installation of Buzzi, kind of carbon capture project, carbon looping project. So that is a very tangible outcome. Carbon upcycling is gaining quite a bit of attention right now with also industrial investment, for example, by CRH. In the 23 challenge, we have selected or formed then 4 consortia with the companies that you see here on the list, Queen's Carbon, Cement, and Neocrete. All of these are advancing okay. I think Cement is more, let's say, guiding a young, innovative guy. Queen's Carbon is now setting up pilots, also with help of investment out of the industry. Envicor, Heidelberg Materials, for example, invested, but they also, and I show that on the next page, did some industrial scale trials in Thailand, actually. As said, in the 24 challenge, we were struggling a little bit to form consortia because that was on CCUS technologies. And then, of course, the investment to scale up and really pilot technologies are often in the 2-3 million range. And there we are struggling so far how to provide that money or how to finance that. So we only ended up with one consortium agreement ultimately, but are reconsidering also our process and how we can attract venture capital for these phases and might cooperate with some VC partners further on. So this is what I meant, Marshall. You did trials in your semi-industrial scale kiln lines in June last year. So that is a very practical outcome, more or less next door to your location. We did similar things with Envicor, so it's not just discussing with these startups, but really guiding them in the practical application of their innovations, but based on the selection by industry experts and not by the financial community in the first place. Yeah, this year's program is running right now. We had originally over 60 applications from around the world, did a kind of pre-selection, then moved into pitch presentation in front of the experts. I think in total 17 startups we had there in May in two rounds. And right now we are in the phase of just concluding the phase of presentation of 12 companies that were selected out of the 17 for more detailed presentations and discussion with the members. And if you ask me, I guess we will end up with 5-6 consortia this year that will then advance the technology further on. But that process is ongoing. Just yesterday evening we had the last discussion with one company in this phase. So more to come then in the second half of or in the later half of the year, later part of the year. But overall, also a very interesting program utilizing the ideas and innovation power of the startup. So we have from basic research to startup scene, cover the whole field of innovation. I believe that's it for now.
Okay, thank you very much, Wolfgang, for your presentation. Are there any questions from the floor? You can raise your hand and microphone will go to you.
Hello, Wolfgang. Hi, here Hakan.
Hey, Hakan.
Yeah, good to see you. And no, I just wanted to ask or exchange some ideas about calcined clay. Now that you are in Innovandi all these years and you're in the head functions of the committee there, how do you see calcined clay's future in our cement business? You think it's going to be widely dispersed in all the countries where the source is available, of course, raw material? Within, I believe so. You will agree with that. But when do you see in the horizon, within the next 3-5 years, we can see it almost in all the countries where the raw material is available, all the industry is moving into that? Or it would be slow going like in the last few years, quite slow movement. Heidelberg Materials has just commissioned one in Africa. Good to mention that, of course. But do you think we will see more often, like separate grinding or like alternative fuel projects? There's so many things happening in other areas, but calcined clay is quite slow moving. What do you think about that?
I agree, and the technology is around now since, say, 15 years or so. And really it's a slow uptake in the industry overall so far. Maybe because the pressure on CO2 was not high enough yet. This will change, or is changing at least in Europe. We will have see much more pressure on that end. And definitely the reduction of clinker factor is maybe the most promising way As we also see within our company, carbon capture technologies are super expensive. Without substantial subsidies, impossible at this stage. And if we are forced to reduce clinker incorporation, calcined clay is certainly a technology that will further advance. There, I'm pretty sure timing will depend on the cost pressure coming from CO2 emissions.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question from the team. We also create many action plan for the net zero in the future as well for also Thailand. What is the key barrier impact to our cement business cannot achieve net zero? You also mentioned about the carbon capture. For the carbon capture in Thailand, if we don't have any support from the government, can we make it happen or not?
First of all, as I said, I'm very convinced that the first solution needs to be reduction on the clinker and on the clinker side. So alternative fuels to reduce CO2 content of clinker, then reduction of the clinker factor that are always cheaper solutions than carbon capture. In the same time, of course, also these technologies will further advance, and we will learn more and hopefully identify also more economic alternatives. You know that we have here in Europe, we run oxy-fuel trials, which we hope are cheaper ultimately than the amine capture technologies. We have very innovative ideas with these pillar clays that I demonstrated earlier. So there will be developments also on that end that hopefully then ultimately lead to affordable solutions to really go to net zero. We can't do it without carbon capture ultimately, but we need to reduce the clinker lines to the minimum what we need on the clinker incorporation side. So I guess we need to go down to whatever 60% on global average maybe. I think that is an achievable target, and then equip the remaining clinker lines with carbon capture. That's the ultimate solution.
Are there any other questions from the floor? You can raise your hand. Okay, I have one more question for myself, Wolfgang. If looking ahead, what the success for the Innovandi in 2030? What is your idea in the future? What the success of Innovandi in the future?
That's a good question. I think with the startup accelerating program here, Open Challenge, we are learning round by round. So there is certainly further improvement potential. And I think, I don't know on how many meetings you have participated or with how many startups you have spoken. I think this year's round, there's a clear progress towards the previous years. But this will be a gradual further improvement. For the research network, we have quite a bit of discussion regarding also new partners. For me, growing the network on the industrial side certainly is no problem, but the size is not everything. I'm happy to include also new academic partners if they provide additional, let's say, competences that we miss for the projects of the future. So I think their quality for me is more important than numbers or volume. And we should develop that further, and there will always be chances to grow that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Where we are in 2030,
Too far.
I don't have the crystal ball.
Okay, if no more questions, give a big round of applause to Wolfgang that have the good presentation to us. Thank you very much. If you have a chance to go to Thailand, you can visit at any time, Wolfgang. Yeah.
I know. I hope I have the opportunity in future. I wish you a nice rest of the conference and later a good weekend.
Yeah, you are a very busy guy. I understand you, but have a chance to talk, discussion sometime in somewhere else. Thank you very much.